Good morning. My name is Melanie Salvat. Today I'll be presenting on groups affecting society according to deep ecology. What is deep ecology? Deep ecology is an environmental philosophy which supports a deep questioning of the causes of environmental destruction. This philosophy promotes a non-anthropocentric view of ecological issues, asserts all living beings are inherently valuable, and advocates for the restructuring of modern human society to preserve ecological and cultural diversity. The term deep ecology was first coined by Norwegian philosopher Arne Næss in 1973, who wanted to present an alternative to mainstream environmentalism, which he considered shallow. Shallow environmentalism, or shallow ecology, describes the use of short-term technological solutions for environmental problems. Shallow ecology treats environmental destruction by addressing immediate symptoms, but fails to reflect critically on underlying cultural, political, and ideological causes of this destruction. Ness outlined 8 key points of this philosophy, the last of which support policy change and an obligation to action. Concerns and criticisms. The most controversial aspect of deep ecology lies in its fourth viewpoint, which promotes a substantial decrease of the human population. Although Ness advocates for population decrease over the course of many generations, the belief in what today is known as the overpopulation myth is heavily criticized and has been labeled an eco-fascist viewpoint. The overpopulation myth shifts the blame from unsustainable consumption by the rich to the procreation habits of the poor. The roots of the modern population control movement are commonly traced back to the 1968 book, The Population Bomb by Paul Ehrlich, which opens with a sensationalized account of traveling through Delhi, India. Ehrlich fails to mention that while Delhi's population was just shy of 3 million, both New York and Paris housed about 8 million people. This emphasis on an Indian city as the exemplification of overpopulation contributed to a large pattern of focusing blame on the global south and the mostly non-white people who live there. Today, we know that the issue is not so much overpopulation, but instead overconsumption. Neither the consumption of resources nor the impact of this consumption is evenly distributed. Let's take a look at graph A. When plotted against the Human Development Index, which reflects living standards, ecological footprints graphically illustrate the disproportionate use of natural resources by people in developed nations. Graph B acknowledges that the total impacts of developing countries such as China are also large as a result of their large populations. It's important to note that the highest levels of population growth are occurring in parts of the world with the lowest carbon footprints. A second criticism of deep ecology is that it's not deep enough. Social ecologists claim that deep ecology fails to link environmental crises with deep-seated societal issues, particularly in hierarchical political and social systems. How deep is deep ecology if it simplifies the cause of Earth's degradation to capitalism and industrialization, without considering other possible anthropocentric nuances? A third concern involves the individual interpretations of the philosophy. Despite the 8 points put forth as part of the official platform, Arne Næss promotes a flexible interpretation of what it means to practice deep ecology. Næss wanted deep ecology to be widely adopted, to have people connect to and realize that they are a part of nature. Once such an understanding is reached, the process of change can begin. Finally, it's difficult to measure success of this philosophy. It's difficult to track who believes in what, who forms groups based on this, and who acts directly for the cause apart from well-known activists. Advocates of deep ecology. Julia Butterfly Hill is an American environmental activist who lived in the canopy of an ancient redwood tree called Luna for 738 days in protest of logging by the Pacific Lumber Company from 1997 to 1999. Paul Watson co-founded the organization Greenpeace in 1972. He argued for a strategy of direct action that conflicted with the Greenpeace interpretation of nonviolence and therefore was ousted from the board in 1977. Finally, we have the example of David Foreman. He is an American environmentalist and author. He worked for the Wilderness Society as well as the Nature Conservancy. I would consider David Foreman to be a poor example of a deep ecologist. He leans a little too much towards ecofascism. He's made racist and inaccurate comments about Ethiopian children starving due to overpopulation, as well as argued against immigration from a right-wing stance. Organizations. Some of the organizations they formed include the Tree Foundation, Sea Shepherds, and Earth First. Julia Hill's Tree Foundation promotes research, education, and exploration to advance the conservation of Earth's botanical resources and ecosystems. Paul Watson's Sea Shepherds. Sea Shepherd is an international nonprofit marine conservation organization that engages in direct action campaigns to defend wildlife and conserve and protect the world's oceans from illegal exploitation and environmental destruction. Lastly, David Foreman co-founded Earth First, an organization known for sometimes taking violent direct action to meet its goals. Earth First has been labeled violent and radical. Some of its methods of direct action have put civilians in danger. They had instances of tree spiking, for example, that threatened loggers' safety. On the other hand, this group also provided Julia Butterfly supplies and support during her 2 years tree sit. These actions towards radical environmentalism ultimately prevailed. Instances of success. In the case of Julia Hill, she succeeded in protecting Luna and the surrounding 3 acres of redwood forest. That's around 12,000 meters squared. In 1999, a preservation agreement was made with Pacific Lumber to stop logging, and Luna is now protected by the Sanctuary Forest Land Trust. Sea Shepherds has also been successful in their protection of marine wildlife. They've saved upwards of 6,500 whales since 2002. The number has probably grown by now. That figure is from 2019. Conclusions. The 8th viewpoint of deep ecology is obligation of action. Those who subscribe to the foregoing points have an obligation, directly or indirectly, to try to implement the necessary changes. Organizations who act directly, according to deep ecology, prove powerful and effective. Individual successes contribute to conservation efforts and help inspire more widespread change. The groups that form as a result have the potential to make great changes with lasting impacts. Thank you.